So we're going to be starting Romans chapter 12 today. Let's open with a word of prayer. Father, thank you for this glorious day. We come here to hear your truth. Please open our ears and our eyes and our hearts to understanding your word and the truths in your word. Let us hear your voice. In Christ's name I pray. Amen. Okay, so we're going to be starting in verse 12 or chapter 12 and verse 1. I beseech you, therefore. So this therefore here is he's starting a summation of everything that he has told you. It's everything that we have learned so far. This is therefore. What do now, right? That's what this is. I beseech you, therefore, given everything that we have learned up to this point, given the doctrines of grace that we've learned up to this point, given the sinfulness of unregenerate man, given the mercy of God, given the mercy of Jesus Christ that we know, given the election that we have unto Jesus Christ and in the body, given how he has predestined us, all the information that we have been given heretofore. This is a transition that he's making here into a summation. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God. And if we've learned anything in the book of Romans up to this point, I hope that what we have learned is that our salvation is by grace, and it is unmerited favor, and it is by the mercy of God that we have received salvation. And that's what he is pointing out here. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. Does somebody have a different version, or it says that a different way? Because I heard a couple different ones.
Which?
We're 12 and 1, and I've got the New King James Schofield.
Mine says, which is your spiritual worship at the end of one.
Which is your spiritual worship. Does anybody else have anything else in there? Reasonable? Okay. That you present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. And we'll go ahead and read 2 as well. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. There's a couple things that we're going to still talk about here in 1. When he says, by the mercy of God, that you present your body. He's not just talking about your arms and legs and limbs here, guys. Right? That's not, of course, that is tied into it. It is tied into it, but it's not just talking about your physical body, that you present your body in a clean manner. That's not the only thing that we're talking about. This, when you present your body, it's more yourselves in whole. Just as if you were to say anybody, if I would say, hey, anybody, have a, Nissan Frontier, right? I wouldn't just say we're not talking about arms and legs here. You know what I mean? I'm talking about the encompassing of the human being, right? And so that's what this is talking about here. It's not just talking about your actual physical body. Present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. So to understand this, we have to go back to, because he's starting to speak in a different way here. He's starting to kind of speak in an Old Testament way a little bit, right? He's speaking in an Old Testament way, talking about sacrifice, right? And so before the new covenant, it would be the first fruits, right? The first fruits would be sacrificed. And how that would look would be whether it was the first fruits of the vineyard or the first fruits of the flock, or the herd. They would sacrifice these animals, and everything actually around that about the service unto God in the Old Testament. A lot of it has to do with sacrifice, right? A lot of it has to do with sacrifice. And you want to get into why, right? Why was it that way? Why were you sacrificing the first fruits of your labor? Why were you sacrificing the unblemished sheep, right? Because it wasn't ever the oldest sheep, right? It was the unblemished calf, Why were you sacrificing these things? And the answer to that is to the glory of God, right? To the glory of God. Because what that shows you, and these things weren't asked to be, these sacrifices weren't asked to be done begrudgingly, if that makes sense, right? You weren't supposed to loathe the fact that you were sacrificing unto God. Like, oh, got to give my 10% here, or some calamity is going to befall me, right? That was not the intent. That's not how it was designed. How it was designed was what? So that you glorify God by doing what? By putting Him first, right? By holding everything in its proper place, right? So you go out there and you have a heyday crop this year, right? And everybody's coming to you saying, oh man, how did you do that? What did you do? What did you plant? When did you water? How did you? Because when you're winning, everybody asks you how you did it, right? So that's what this was for, so that you recognize and glorify not yourself, right? But God who makes this possible, right? That's what this is. This is a recognition. When we talk about what the major transgression of man against God is, right? They did not recognize Him nor glorify Him, right? That's what these sacrifices were for. Recognition and glorification. Therefore, I beseech you, therefore, brethren. It says by the mercies of God, okay? But I think that how we can better understand this is, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, considering the mercies of God, right? Considering the mercies of God. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, I plead with you, right? Therefore, brethren, considering the mercies of God that we have just went over, that I've just told you about, right? For chapter upon chapter. Considering the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. Now we're going to skip this part here, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. let's think about that for a second. Which is your reasonable service? And somebody else says spiritual. What does it say? Spiritual duty?
Spiritual worship. But man, the reasonable service is so much better.
Right. I think, Darren, I don't know. I think in the Greek there, it says something like the root word is like, it's same as the root word logic.
On the service?
On that reasonable, which is your reasonable service. I was hearing that.
Well,
Like logos or
it's logikos.
logikos, right? Yeah, logikos. So what we have here, which is your reasonable service, right? So I beseech you, therefore, brethren, considering the mercy that God has given you, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service, which is logical, guys. It's absolutely logical. If you understand that, right? If you understand the mercy, and I hope you understand it if you've read this, because he goes in depth. There's not a place in the Bible that I know of where it goes more in depth about the righteousness and about the grace of God than what we have just been going over. That you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. That you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God. We'll get into what that means. Okay? We're going to get into what that means. And we're going to not hit it head on. We're going to try to hit it from the flank. Because if I hit it head on, you're going to think I'm telling you to do something. That you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service, logical service. Okay, here we go. Chapter 2. Let me make sure I'm on. Okay. 2. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Do not be conformed to this world. You know, there's a lot of confusion about this. Conformity, right? And how I'm going to try to explain this. So, you guys went to high school, right? Some of you, right? We went to high school, right? Let's do this one. We're all Oklahomans, you know, The Outsiders book and movie, right? Good stuff, right? Who doesn't know The Outsiders? It's from Oklahoma. Not many. We'll kick them out if they don't like it. So you got the socias, right? And you got the greasers, right? And the socias would be more what? Conformists, right? Is that not right? Preppy kids, right? From the good side of town, right? You got the soda. But then you got the greasers, right? And what are the greasers?
We're babes.
Rebels, right? Nonconformists, I guess you could say. But this doesn't say, and do not be conformed to this world, but be nonconformist, right? It doesn't say that, guys. Because I'm going to tell you something. What would a greaser even be, right? What would a greaser even be in the outsiders if he did not have the example of the socius, right? They're just two sides of the same coin, guys. Two sides of the same coin. It's like whenever you see these people and they go and they're like, oh, they don't fit in with the in crowd in high school. So what do they start doing? Well, the cheerleaders are going to the pep rally. So these other girls, we're not going to the pep rally. But why are they not going? They're not going specifically because these other people are going, right? They're not being transformed. They're conforming just in the opposite way, right? Like they see it as some kind of like revolutionary act of rebellion, which in reality, they wouldn't even know how to rebel if they didn't have this standard that was being set for them, right? That's not what we're being asked to do here, guys. It's the same thing that you could see with like the Mennonites, right? These Mennonites, and aren't these the people that ride the buggies and horse? Yeah, Amish, right? These Amish, they ride the buggy and horse, right? What are they going to do? Everything that the world doesn't do, right? Not wear buttons, not wear all this stuff, right? And become dogmatic in that. And that becomes traditions of men now, right? It's two sides of the same coin. And I wish I had a coin on me, but what we're not talking about here is we're not talking about don't be conformed to this world by, do everything opposite of the world is doing, right? That's not what is being said here. What's being said here is when it says transformed, what that means is be metamorphosis, guys, right? It's a metamorphosis. That's the root word in there. When you say transform is the root word of metamorphosis. It is changed wholly, entirely into a new thing, guys. That's the thing. It's not we got the world out here and that's the Kardashians and that's the capitalistic drive, right? And then you've got on the flip side, you've got all these libertarians who are running out there with their sticks and into the woods and, trying to make potable drinking water, like that's not what we're talking about here, right? It's the same thing whenever when you're trying to, what does a Republican do? That which a Democrat doesn't. What is a Democrat like? That which a Republican doesn't, right? It's two sides of the same coin, guys, right? We're not called to either sides of those. See, that's a dichotomy there. It's a false dichotomy is what it is. And it's confirmation to this world. It's absolutely confirmation to this world. You're conforming to this world if you choose either one of those sides of that. What we're called to do here, guys, what we're called to do is to be transformed into something new, into something wholly, entirely not of this world, different. And that's what you are as a renewed, regenerate spirit in Jesus Christ. You are wholly new, set apart from this world. You are not of this world any longer. So what defines you is not the fact that, all the girls are watching the Met Gala tonight and drinking wine. I'm not going to do that because I'm a Christian. That has nothing to do with it whatsoever. Donnie, you got something?
Yeah, I can't. It seemed like Charles brought this up, and I can't remember where it is in the Bible, but he said many, many times, you have to be be in the world, but not of the world. You have to get along in the world, but you're not of it. That's not why you're here.
Right. And I think that that's absolutely certainly true. We'll just read the text here again. I got a thought brewing. Hopefully it'll come to fruition. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. I've been confused a lot about this renewing your mind, right? How do I renew my mind? Right? And I was reading this, and I've read this quite a few times. And I'm thinking, and I'll listen to you if you say it's the other way around. But I'm starting to think that this is not so much that Daniel goes out there when he gets out of church and starts renewing his mind up, right? However we do that. I think that what this is be transformed, but that your mind is being renewed, right? Your mind is being renewed. If you are a regenerate Christian and Jesus Christ paid the penalty for your sin, and now you are holy, blameless, and beyond reproach, your mind is being renewed. There's not I'm saved Christian, accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, know that to be true, believed that that he died on the cross for my sins and God raised him up 3 days later, and truly believe that in my heart, and also my mind is not being renewed. Right? Does that make sense what I just said? That it can't be all this and then stop here, and now there's something you got to start doing so you can renew your mind up. Right? It's all one thing, guys. It's going to be happening, and we'll point out some ways that it certainly does happen. But as I've been reading this verse the last few days, I don't think that this is so much of a go out there and do. I think it is an acceptance, a resignation almost, if you will, of the sovereignty of God in your life, and in the sovereignty of God and you as his possession, right? Your mind is being renewed.
This, the Greek almost gives you a sense of a renovation,
Right.
a complete gutting of what it was before
Yeah.
and renovating it up. Man, that's the Christian walk.
Yeah.
But our hearts change, but that mind may take a while to process things, to totally renew,
Mm-hmm.
to say, well, I used to do this,
Right.
but that's not the problem, I think it's where it's going here.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that that's exactly right. And I think that be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. I think that is, and I think that's what you're saying, that it is the evidence of and the process of sanctification in our lives,
Daily.
and a daily sanctification of our lives.
May I say something?
Oh yeah,
Seems like verse 2 is not telling us to do a single thing,
right,
not a single command there. It's just telling us don't be conformed.
right,
Don't take that action of being conformed. But God's doing all of it. Just don't be conformed to the world. There's no renewal if you are.
yeah. Yeah, and I I know, guys, that unless I'm just wrong about everything, what I know is that this process of sanctification that we are going through, even though we are wholly sanctified, we're talking about that third deal that Larry was talking about. This process of sanctification that we're going through, the volition's going to be in there, guys, and there's going to be decisions here and there, right? And what I know is that if you are regenerate over the course of time, those decisions will start being more and more and more in line with the will of God. And also what I know is that as a Christian, we hope, for the most part, that it was all done today. So we'll read it again here. I beseech you, What's another word for that? Beseech.
Appeal.
Appeal. I appeal to you. Therefore, brethren, considering everything that we've talked about heretofore, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. There's going to be decisions, guys. I just can't tell you any other way. There's going to be decisions. If you're a regenerate Christian, you know how God made you is you are not an automaton. You know, you are not an automaton. In this process of sanctification, while automatic, the ongoing process of sanctification it's not an automatic thing. So if you're just out there waiting, well, when God wants me to stop dog cussing everybody in traffic, a thunderbolt of lightning is going to strike me in the head and I'm going to stop doing it that very day. Okay? Sorry, guys. That's probably not the way it's going to happen. Right? And it's in every other little thing in your life. Right? What we got, Joy?
I'm thinking about something that I wrote maybe 5 years ago, just a short little piece, and it kind of goes to what Darren was saying in Daniel's lesson about how we do need to listen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we hear God's voice, but we need to be listening. And then what you're saying in that same sense, sanctification. And so I wrote a little piece about a plant that I was taking care of.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me think of kind of sanctification and the work involved on our part.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wrote about how the plant that I had it on a table next to the sunlight, but I would turn it. I would, the flowers would start to reach towards
Sure.
the sun, but I would turn it so that the plant would have to work back toward that light, because I know I'm not the best, plant person, but at least I knew that that's what makes the plant strong. And
Right.
just like trees, like baby trees, you put the little side peels on the baby trees as they grow, but not for too long, because you have to take those side peels off
Yeah.
so that it almost breaks, but it doesn't. It gets stronger.
So it'll strengthen. Yeah.
I kind of think of that in the we wouldn't be strong, we wouldn't grow if God's literal hands were inside us, like just holding this leaf and holding this leaf and just holding them there, just where we're not doing anything.
Yeah.
Like that wouldn't be good. He knows that wouldn't be good for us. So there's work involved.
Yeah. 100%. That's 100% correct. Look, guys, you are designed to be dependent. You are designed to be dependent. Okay? That is how you are. And so you're going to depend on something, right? You depend on your mother and father for an example, right? You depend on the economy. You depend on the marketplace. You depend on all kinds of things. Human beings are dependent upon each other, right? For one, dependent on a bunch of stuff. There's no humans out there, or if there are, the number's so small it's not even worth talking about, that are independent, right? You are designed to be dependent, okay? And being conformed to this world is being dependent on the things of this world, guys. And being transformed by the renewing of your mind is being dependent on the Word of God. And it is that simple. That's what it is, guys. And how you do that is, it's just like Daniel was talking about in the earlier hour, that we hear our Father's voice, right? We hear our Father's voice. Whenever you hear something out in the world, and I'm almost certain you do this, I know that I do it. It's like you hear a bunch of people going a certain direction in conversation, and you just feel yourself not going that way. And you might not even know for what reason. I don't know. I don't think I want to be around those people, for whatever reason. That's what we're talking about here. Because God's law, God's love, if you're a Christian, is written on your heart. And so those things of the world are not going to be as enticing to you as they once were. And they're going to, as you continue on, they're going to be less and less enticing than they are at that moment, even though they're already lessened. Let's read it once again here. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercy of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice. What is that? A living sacrifice. Well, it's a contrast, right? Because most sacrifices are dead, but are you not dead in sin, right? You put away the old man, right? But you're now a new creation, alive in Jesus Christ, right? A living sacrifice, right? Unto his glory. Holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. And so what we want to talk about here is what we want to get away from, guys, is the burden of service. The burden of service. So a lot of people do this, and we'll just use this as an illustration because I can't think of anything else right now. Tithing. Let's just take tithing, right? Some churches out there, you listen to Copeland, right? You know Copeland? You know who I'm talking about? That crazy televangelist demon? He talks about some tithing, right? So much so, well, the guy's a complete, I don't know, there probably is, but he's in league with the most evil men in the world, as far as I'm concerned. But we'll just set that part of it aside, right? We'll just talk about the idea of tithing. You get into this thing where you go to a church and the preacher is going to talk for 45 minutes or 40 minutes, probably 35, because you're going to have some praise and worship before the thing starts, right? Then he's going to talk for 35 minutes. Then you'll have a little praise and worship there. Then there's going to be the tithe part, right? And there's always a speech, right, about the tithe. Is that not right? There's always a speech about the tithe, guys. And they might tell you what they're doing. Oh, we're going to Africa. All right? Or he might be honest and say, oh, we need a new navigator. Whatever the thing is. But what happens there is, the deal is, what happens there is, I'm telling you, whenever they walked up and gave that money to Melchizedek, it was not in front and showy, right? Like that. But what's happening there is you are being put in front of everyone else, right? It's the burden of conformity, for lack of a better phrase. And so what you get into is you start feeling burdened to tithe, right? You start feeling burdened to tithe. And let me tell you something, not all sacrifices are the same unto God. He does not treat all sacrifices the same at all. Right? So, and I don't even know I don't think that you are under the burden of the tithe. I think that's where I was last time I thought about it. I don't think that you're under the burden of the tithe. But let's say you are. Okay? You are not If you are tithing out of burden, responsibility, because everybody else is doing it, because you don't want to be seen as somebody not doing it, right? Do you think that that sacrifice is going to be acceptable? Do you think he cares about the money? It's not about the money, guys. It's about recognition, about glorification, about the fact that you recognize what and who is most important, right? That's what the deal is. And so, what's the line? The Lord loves a cheerful what?
Giver.
Giver. The Lord loves a cheerful giver. And I'm not just talking about, we just use tithe because it's easy to explain, guys. But all the rest of this stuff, present your body as a living sacrifice in the world. We're not saying go out there and you have to have your hat on and have your clothes on and be super rigid and make sure you're following all these laws. You're under burden at that point. That's not cheerful, right? You're happy to do these things for God. Why do you not want to, I don't know what. Why do you not want to steal? Right? Like sometimes I go to the Chipotle, right? And I'll say the double chicken. And if they're so busy, I get there and the other guy doesn't know that you got to ring up for the double chicken, right? But I know what the prices are because I go there all the time. And so he'll say 13, blah, blah, blah. Well, I know that the double chicken ain't on there. All right? And so does the $2, is that really going to make a difference in me? Right? Nobody's going to know. Doesn't make a difference. The $2, thank God, it's not going to make a difference in my life right now. You know? But the situation is, if I'm looking at that like, oh, hey, you need to ring that up. I had a double chicken, my man. You know? And then it's like, it feels like you're doing that because of a burden or because of, I should do that. I hope the point's getting across there. The deal is that you shouldn't want to do that. Man, you know what? I had a double, bro. You know? That's it. Like, whatever. Does that make sense? Is that point coming across? Is it too simple? Because I think it's simple, guys. I really do. I think it gets made a lot more complex than it is. This how we present our bodies a living sacrifice. This how we live for God. Right? It is not. It is the furthest thing from self-glorification that there is. Or self-exaltation. Right? We do these things, and I can tell you this, you know, and I'll even say I made a mistake. Yesterday, I just let the guy do it. Right? So I was like, well, you know, most of the time I correct him. But I think that what happens is, I know what happens is that you just stop wanting to do these things as you continue on. And so we'll read the verses again. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God that he's already made clear to you, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. What's he asking you to do? Is he asking you to do too much? Is he? We just spent 11 chapters telling you what he did for you. Is it too much to not gossip about your coworker? Oh, she gained a little weight. Right? Is that too much? You know, to shut your mouth, right, about that. No, it's not too much, right? It's not. Is it too much to be encouraging to someone? To be an open ear for someone? To show somebody love and the fruits of the Spirit? That's a reasonable service, guys. Given what you've been given, it's reasonable. It should be a kind ear to someone, an understanding ear. Right? And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed. Guys, we're not Democrats and Republicans. We're liberals and conservatives. Now, certainly there's probably some ideas on both sides of those that you identify with. I'm sure there are. That's not what you are. You are transformed, a new creation. You are a Christian, and that's the number one thing that you are. It's the number one thing you are. You're a lot of other things too. Your sister, your brother, father, son, granddad, you're all these things. But the number one thing that you are as a Christian, if you are in fact a Christian, if you are in fact a Christian, it's never the second thing that you are. You are never, I'm a mom first, and then I'm a Christian. I'm a dad first, and then I'm a Christian. I'm a husband first, I'm a Christian. I'm a business owner first, then I'm a Christian. It's never that. It can't be that, guys. If you think it's that, then you're thinking too small, right? You don't know what happened. You don't really have an idea. I think that if you think that it's that way, or if you live your life like it's that way, you don't grasp what we just read for 10 chapters about what he's been talking about. Because what he's talking about supersedes the mechanics of this planet. Supersedes everything here. Supersedes everything that you can conceive of in your mind. And you are taking on faith that Jesus Christ rose from the dead. Right? You are not anything else first and then a Christian. You can be a Christian mother, you can be a Christian father, Christian son, Christian business owner, Christian, all these other things, but you are a Christian first. And you don't want to forget that, because the world's going to try to make you forget it. The world is going to try to make you forget that. But it's not going to be successful. The world's not going to be successful at that. The game's already won. The world is going to try to make you get confused about that. But it's not going to win. God's plan will be fulfilled, will be seen until the day of Jesus Christ. And I hope you're a part of that. I believe that you are. That's all I got, guys. Thank you.
Thank you both.